Hare Krishna, welcome to all devotees. Today we continue Śvetāśvatara second chapter 9, answers by citing the Lord's version. We try to understand Shloka 43 and 44. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Vasudevaya.
Nārayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyāsam tato jayam udiret nashtaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhakti bhavati naistiki. Hare Krishna. Atushtam nishamya pitaram lokanam prapitamaham. Devarshi paripapracha bhavana yatma anupruchati. Tasmai idam bhagavatam puranam dasalakshanam. Proktam bhagavata praha pritaha putraya bhutakrita. Tushtam nishamya pitaram lokanam prapitamaham devarshi paripapracha bhavana yatma anupruchati. Tasmai idam bhagavatam puranam dasalakshanam proktam bhagavata praha prita putraya bhutakrita. Tushtam nishamya pitaram lokanam prapitamaham devarshi paripapracha bhavana yatma anupruchati. Tasmai idam bhagavatam puranam dasalakshanam proktam bhagavata praha prita putraya bhutakrita. Translation and purport by the Srila Prabhupada, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The great sage Nārada also inquired in detail from his father Brahmā, the great grandfather of all the universe, after seeing him well satisfied. Thereupon, the supplementary Vedic literature Srimad Bhagavatam, which was described by the personality of Godhead and which contains 10 characteristics, was told with satisfaction by the father Brahmā to his son Nārada. Purport. The process of understanding spiritual or transcendental knowledge from the realized person is not exactly like asking an ordinary question from the schoolmaster. The schoolmasters in the modern days are paid agents for the giving some information, but the spiritual master is not a paid agent, nor can he impart instruction without being authorized. In the Bhagavad Gita 4.34, the process of understanding transcendental knowledge is directed as follows. Tat vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnanina tattvadarshina. Arjuna was advised to receive transcendental knowledge from the realized person by surrender, questions and service. Receiving transcendental knowledge is not like exchanging dollars. Such knowledge has to be received by service to the spiritual master. As Brahmaji received the knowledge directly from the Lord by satisfying him fully, similarly, one has to receive the transcendental knowledge from the spiritual master by satisfying him. The spiritual master satisfaction is the means of assimilating transcendental knowledge. One cannot understand transcendental knowledge simply by becoming a grammarian. The Vedas declare, Yasya deve para bhakti, yatha deve tata guru, tas ete katita by artha, hi artha prakashante mahatmanah. Only one, only unto one, who has unflinching devotion to the Lord and to the spiritual master, does transcendental knowledge become automatically revealed. Śvetāśvatara Upaniṣad 6.23. Such relationship between the disciple and the spiritual master is eternal. One who is now the disciple is the next spiritual master, and one cannot be a bona fide and authorized spiritual master unless one has been strictly obedient to his spiritual master. Brahmaji, as a disciple of the Supreme Lord, received the real knowledge and imparted it to his dear disciple Nārada. And similarly, Nārada, as spiritual master, handed over this knowledge to Vyāsa, and so on. Therefore, the so-called formal spiritual master and disciple are not facsimiles of Brahmā and Nārada, or Nārada and Vyāsadeva. The relationship between Brahmā and Nārada is reality, while the so-called formality is the relation between the cheater and cheated. It is clearly mentioned here with that Nārada is not only well behaved, meek and obedient, but also self-controlled. One who is not self-controlled, specifically in sex life, can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. One must have disciplinary training in controlling speaking, anger, the tongue, the mind, the belly, and the genitals. One who has controlled the particular senses mentioned above is called a Goswami. Without becoming a Goswami, one can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. The so-called spiritual master without sense control is certainly the cheater, and the disciple of such a so-called spiritual master is the cheated. One should not think of Brahmaji as a dead great grandfather, as we have experienced on this planet. He is the oldest great grandfather, and he is still living, and Nārada is also living. The age of the inhabitants of the Brahmaloka planet is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. The inhabitants of this small planet Earth can hardly calculate even the duration of one day of Brahma. Although the Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken in 4 verses, it had 10 characteristics, which will be explained in the next chapter. In the 4 verses, it is first said that the Lord existed before the creation, and thus the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam includes the Vedanta aphorisms. Jalmadi Asya is the beginning, yet the 4 verses in which it is said that the Lord is the root of everything, that beginning from the creation up to the supreme abode of the Lord, naturally explain the 10 characteristics. One should not misunderstand by wrong interpretation that the Lord spoke only 4 verses, and that therefore all the rest of the 17,994 verses are useless. The 10 characteristics, as will be explained in the next chapter, require so many verses just to explain them properly. Brahmaji had also advised Nārada previously that he should expand the idea he had heard from Brahmaji. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed this to Srila Rupa Goswami in a nutshell, but the disciple Rupa Goswami expanded this very elaborately, and the same subject was further expanded by Jiva Goswami and even further by Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. We are just trying to follow in the footsteps of all these authorities. So Srimad Bhagavatam is not like ordinary fiction or mundane literature. It is unlimited in strength, and however, one may expand it according to one's own ability. Bhagavatam still cannot be finished by such expansion. Srimad Bhagavatam being the sound representation of the Lord, is simultaneously explained in 4 verses and in 4 billion verses, all the same, inasmuch as the Lord is smaller than the atom and bigger than the unlimited sky. Such is the potency of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Ena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati So Padantikam Vande Ham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavancha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitancha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminite Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhecha Krupa Sindhuve Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Today we continuing Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2nd, Chapter 9, answers by citing the Lord's version. Here, in 43 shloka, describing the great sage Nārada inquire in detail from Brahmā, which is his father, the great grandfather of all the universe, after seeing him well satisfied. And in 44 shloka, they describing about the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was described by the personality of Godhead, which contains 10 characteristics, and told satisfaction by the father to his son Nārada. And although the Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken by in 4 verses, it had 10 characteristics. Prabhuji will tell us in nicely. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare. Thank you very much, Mataji, for introducing us to this very important subject matter of the eternal chain of disciplic succession and the science of devotion, and how Bhagavatam is unlimited in potency. So if you look at the spiritual lineage, which as we were talking yesterday as well, how the knowledge has flown from Brahmā to Nārada and onwards. So in these verses, the Bhagavatam is actually revealing the sacred process through which the knowledge descends from Lord to Brahmā to Nārada to Vyāsa, Sutta Goswami, Śukadeva Goswami, Sutta Goswami, and to the present day through bona fide spiritual masters. This divine transmission, it is not based on academic exchange, but on 3S. 3S, which are very important. S for surrender, S for service, and S for satisfaction. So surrender, service, and satisfaction of the spiritual master. So it is on these 3S that the knowledge can flow. And for this, Prabhupada ji quotes the 34th shloka of Bhagavad Gita, where it is mentioned very clearly, instructed by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadyakshanti te jnanam jnanina tattvadarshina. That please approach a realized soul with three aspects again, which is his humility, inquiry, and service. And after we approach a realized soul with his, the self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So true knowledge cannot be bought like a commodity. Like nowadays, we are always going on the online platform, Big Basket, Zepto, and so many things. We order, and within few minutes, we get the delivery at our home. But true knowledge cannot be bought like this. It manifests only in the heart of one who sincerely serves both Krishna and his representative. Now, if you remember, we talked about 3S for divine transmission, which is surrender, service, satisfaction. And in 34th shloka, Krishna has told about his, that we have to have his humility, inquiry, and service to the spiritual master. So in and all, what we are targeting is that we should be humble, we should surrender, we should inquire, then we should serve, and then we hope for satisfaction. In fact, Prabhupada in the purport also quotes the Śvetāśvatara Upaniṣad 6.23 shloka. Yasya deve para bhakti yatha deve tatha guru tasyeta kathita hi artha prakashante mahatmana. So which means that only to one who has unflinching devotion to the Lord and equal devotion to the spiritual master is transcendental knowledge. Brahmā received this divine wisdom directly from the Lord through devotion and penance, and in turn he imparted it to his devoted disciple Nārada. Nārada, as the perfect disciple, received and shared that same message purely, without alteration. So this unbroken succession, Brahmā, Nārada, Vyāsa, Śukadeva, it forms the foundation of all authentic spiritual understanding. So the question obviously becomes that if this is the foundation, then there has to be certain qualifications for becoming a true disciple, or how to identify a spiritual master. So qualifications are important. So Bhagavatam, as Prabhupada explains in the purport, emphasizes that one who lacks sense control, particularly over speech, anger, mind, belly, tongue, and genitals, the central organs, can be neither a disciple nor a guru. Like in young age, many a times, the boys, the students, they want to eat, they like eating, they want to speak, they love speaking. But then it is the duty of the parents that they teach them. Because if your belly is not in control, your tongue is not in control, your speech is not in control, then automatically it leads to uncontrolled mind and anger. And such children can never become an ideal disciple in future, nor a guru. So only one who has this in control, Sam BTG, that is speech, anger, mind, belly, tongue, and genitals, he is called a Goswami. And without this control, But teacher and student fall into the trap of hypocrisy, the cheater and the cheated relationship that mimics, but does not reflect the real bond of what we see between Brahmaji and Nārada. Srila Rupa Goswami Ji has defined pure devotional service as Rishikena Rishikesha Sevana, engaging all one's purified senses in the service of Rishikesh, the master of senses. So genuine disciple follows the instructions of his guru strictly, observing vows like chanting, purity in diet, regulation in life. And only such sincere discipline allows divine knowledge to enter the heart. Krishna reveals himself to the obedient and humble, never to the proud or speculative. And bhakti is that path of pure identity. Devotional service, as we have seen even yesterday, is not sentimental emotion, but highest science of spiritual realization. When one is freed from all material designations, nationality, family identity, personal ambition, and identifies only as eternal servant of Krishna, that is platform of bhakti. Srila Prabhupada explains one should take all kinds of responsibility for Krishna's sake. So a true devotee dedicates his thoughts, words, deeds entirely for the pleasure of Krishna, acting selflessly even amidst personal inconvenience. And such a Mahatma, which we also see being described by Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita 9.13, where Krishna tells Arjuna, Mahatmanah tu imparted Devim Prakritimāśrita Bhajanti Ananyam Manasah Dhanatva Bhutadim Avyayam. So, Bhagavatam, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying that such a Mahatma is always under the divine protection, absorbed in the service of Krishna, and is never diverted by material allurements. These great souls, they act under the Devi Prakriti, the Lord's spiritual energy, and thus remain untouched by illusion. So Bhagavatam is the complete science of God, as is explained in the second shloka of the day. Here we see that Bhagavatam is declaring itself to be Amala Puran, the spotless Puran free from all material contaminations. Although the essence of divine truth was first spoken by the Lord to Brahmā in 4 concise verses, the Bhagavatam expands infinitely through 18,000 verses and beyond, explaining those truths in depth. Just as the Lord is both smaller than the smallest, greater than the greatest, his sound incarnation, Bhagavatam, is unlimited. Every verse, whether 4 billion, it reveals the same divine reality. So Brahmā, having received the wisdom, transmitted it to Nārada with satisfaction, thus continuing the divine current of spiritual realization. So Bhagavatam is therefore not a human composition, but the living voice of Krishna, meant to awaken love and devotion in every heart. It is here that we are seeing the definition of true penance, tapasya, the penance of devotional service. Because pure devotional service is the real tapasya. Real austerity means voluntarily accepting discomfort for spiritual advancement. So when one serves Krishna with love, detachment, and knowledge, they naturally arise. The penance purifies the heart, just as Brahmaji was purified before creation. So such service is the Lord's internal potentiality, completely spiritual and non-different from him. By engaging in this loving service, one becomes detached from material enjoyment and attains the highest realization. Because the Lord is the perfect, He is the complete whole. Śukadeva declares this, that Godhead is Purna. Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. So Krishna is perfect and complete. All emanations from Him, including the universe, are complete in themselves. Nothing exists outside His total arrangement. The 24 elements of creation, the time, the consciousness, everything functions harmoniously under Krishna's control. The human form of life, being the most developed, is meant for realizing this completeness by connecting with the complete whole, Sri Krishna. If one fails to do so, one wastes this rare opportunity and returns again to the cycle of birth and death. That is what Prabhupada avoided. He has trained all of us in such a simple manner. He has simplified the whole process for all of us to make us aware about the essence of the teachings of Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam teaches that devotion is both the means and the end. It begins with surrender to the spiritual master and culminates in complete love of Krishna. And to receive this divine knowledge, what we are required to do is nothing extraordinary. We just have to follow the 5 steps. We approach a bona fide spiritual master in disciplic line of succession. We serve with humility and obedience. We regulate life with purity and self-control. We engage all senses in service of Krishna and constantly chant and hear the glories of Lord. And in this way, the living entity, he realizes the complete eternal completeness in relation to the complete whole Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And thus we achieve the objective of our life, the opportunity to get the love of Krishna, Krishna Prema. So these shlokas, that is why become important. In a sense, what we understand is that knowledge descends through surrender, wisdom blossoms through service, and perfection is realized through pure love for Krishna.